everybody, and good afternoon, wherever you are joining us from. It's fantastic to have you here, and thank you so much for making time to be with us here. We will get right into it, and others who will be coming, joining will come and, find us along the way. So I will begin by introducing myself. My name is Grace Thuo, and I'm a Senior Communications Manager at the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition Gain. And to begin this program, and on behalf of Wandieville and Gain, I indeed welcome each one of you, our speakers, our guests, to this edition of Nutrition Conversations Africa. So if you are new to us and to NCAfrica platform, this is the Pan-African advocacy platform, and our main aim is to eliminate the African nutritional challenges and opportunities. We are bringing to the fore transformative ideas, game-changing solutions, and, really driving continuous conversations, call to action, advocacy and support, and all in this is to seek to engage in reducing malnutrition in Africa. And we felt that it was important to have a platform that is for us, by us, and being able to contextualize the different issues that we face within the continent. So today, we are very excited to be able to have this discussion on biofortification and to better understand a bit more of the 5 W's and H around it, the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, and the how, and everything else in between. But before we start, let's first dive in a bit more into the background about the current state of micronutrient deficiencies. So the 2020 Global Nutrition Report, it has highlighted dramatic inequities in the burden of micronutrient deficiencies. And this burden, it exists worldwide and particularly affects children and pregnant women. So you find common micronutrient deficiencies. They include iron, vitamin A, iodine and folate, and zinc deficiencies. And these contribute to severe and even life-threatening conditions in many occasions. And amongst other strategies, such as nutrition education, food diversification, food supplementation, biofortification of foods has been found to be an effective strategy to prevent these micronutrient deficiencies. In our discussion today, we will highlight the role of nutrient-dense crops in addressing micronutrient deficiencies in Africa. So once again, we're very welcome to this session and looking forward to that engagement. And there will be opportunities to address your questions and during the discussions to be able to have a moderated Q&A session. So do drop your questions in the chat box, and we'll be able to collect them and bring them to the panel at the end of the session. On social media, we're using the hashtag biofortification. Please do use that hashtag. Tag us as well at NCAfrica. That's our Twitter handle. And we're looking forward to bring all these different views, all these different conversations in one platform and share them to a wider audience through social media. So to begin, I would like to introduce 2 of my colleagues who will be taking us through this session on different aspects of the panel. We do have Evans Nyamoto, and later we should be joined by Uju Unwara, and who will be able to handle the Q&A session. So for our panel discussion, that's what we'll start off with. I would like to introduce Evans Nyamoto, who is also my colleague at GAIN, to take us through the session. So over to you, Evans.
Thank you, Ms. Grace. As mentioned earlier, in today's webinar, our discussion will be on biofortification, the role of nutrient-dense crops in addressing micronutrients deficiency in Africa. Joining us today are 3 panelists, distinguished panelists, and I'd like to begin this discussion by introducing Sakile Kudita, Country Manager, Harvest Plus, Zimbabwe. Just a bit about Sakile. Sakile is an agriculture and rural development expert with more than 20 years experience leading and coordinating projects in seed systems, demand creation, technology transfer, and nutrition-sensitive agriculture. Sakile has a master-level education in biotechnology as well as business administration. She's also currently studying for PhD at Wandieville University. Wow, that's an impressive bio, Sakile. To start with, Sakile, Harvest Plus is at the forefront of biofortification and has been working on biofortification for over a decade. What exactly is biofortification, Sakile?
Sorry, we are having some connection challenges with Sakile. Since we do have Halima here, let's first begin with Sakile as we sort that out on the back end.
Thanks, Ms. Grace. So Halima is a Nigerian nutritionist. She's interested in making accurate nutrition knowledge easy, accessible to members of the public. And to begin with, Halima, experts have discovered that the benefits of fortification and these nutrients-dense foods, but those benefits can only be achieved if people eat dense nutrients food. How can we convince the public to include nutrients-dense food in their diets? Halima?
Hi, Evans. Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. Yes, so as you said, experts have already discovered that biofortification is a step in reducing malnutrition, right? But even if we biofortify every crop on the planet, it won't make a dent in the rate of malnutrition if people don't actually eat these crops. So first of all, these nutrient-dense crops have to be available. So this is from the supply side. The farmers in that area have to cultivate these crops, or there need to be policies in place to make sure that the crops can be imported. The crops also have to be accessible. And by that, I mean that the final consumers need to be able to get these crops in a way that they can actually use them. So in the form they would use them. So this is where the processors become involved, because you can't just give somebody a tuber of cassava and expect to solve their problems. It needs to be manufactured into different forms like pap, like custard, like gari, fufu, flour, snacks, any way they would actually eat it. And once you've done that, you have opened up many other possibilities for them to use these crops. Then you also need to get both wholesale and retail vendors ready to sell these foods to the final consumers. So organizations like Harvest Plus have been doing work like that for years. So what is left is creating a demand to make these foods a norm. So this is the most important part. You need to tell the final consumer why they should want this food. You need to let them know the benefits of this food. You need to sensitize them properly, answer their questions, if any. So they need to know that this food, which may look different from what they are used to, is still safe for them to consume. And maybe it doesn't really affect the taste of the familiar dishes that they love so much. So basically, you have to raise awareness, because it doesn't matter if all the farmers produce, all the processors process, and all the vendors sell. If nobody buys them, then they can't work. And it also works the other way around, because if the consumers don't buy, the farmer would stop cultivating, the processor would stop manufacturing, and the retailer would stop selling. So we tried to address this at Wandieville, but while we created and implemented the Better campaign for the CBC project by GAIN and Harvest Plus. So we created demand for vitamin A maize and cassava in 8 Nigerian states by creating linkages between farmers, processors, and vendors, but our major focus was heavily on awareness creation in these states. So we used market activations where we had like music, dancers, and announcers to capture the attention of hundreds of people in the market and outside the market. So during these market activations, we had music, we had dancers, and then we also distributed flyers to these people. The people became like really curious. They came up to us to answer the questions. So yeah, demand creation programs and projects like this can, demand creation projects like this can help in raising awareness for nutrient-dense crops. Thank you.
Thanks, Halima. Just to recap, what are some of these nutrient-dense crops being grown in Africa?
Yeah, so we have like the ones we worked on were majorly vitamin A, maize, and cassava, but there are also iron beans, pearl millet, zinc rice. There's a lot of them used on most of the staple foods that we consume in Africa. So rice, maize, cassava, and millet. And the major crops they are being fortified with are iron, zinc, and vitamin A, because these are nutrients of public health significance in Africa.
I see. Thanks, Halima. We move over to the next question. The next question will go to Edwin Josiah. So Edwin has over 12 years of work experience in the NGO and consulting sector, having a background in food science and technology. business administration, and certified trainer. Josiah is currently working with the biofortification project in Gain, Tanzania, to build the seed pipeline and gain production in the community and strengthen the existing schools' procurement and feeding system to increase consumption of biofortified maize and beans to Tanzania school. Thanks, Edwin. So with that, Edwin, what is biofortification to you and just in general?
Thank you, Evans, and good morning, everyone. As you introduced me, I'm Edwin Josiah from Guinea, Tanzania, working on the biofortification project. So when we talk about biofortification, we need to first of all to understand that major crops that we are consuming have a poor source of micronutrient. Evans, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So having poor micronutrients, so there are several crops that have purposely been bred by the research institute to have intended micronutrient in those crops. So biofortification is an intentional on farm growing of food varieties with the desired high level of micronutrients. And these micronutrients, for example, when you talk of the provitamin A maize, and when you talk of the iron beans, when you talk of the cassava, you talk of the rice, you talk of the wheat, those are intentionally bred by the Agricultural Institute to ensure that when grown on farm, they will be rich, or they will have more intended micronutrients. That's the main objective of the biofortification, and that's what is a definition of biofortification. Thank you.
Thanks, Edwin. Are there any impacts that have been realized from your projects in Tanzania?
Okay, thank you. We are a project called the commercialization of biofortification, and we dealt with the two pathways. One was the market pathway, and the other one was the school pathway, the institution pathway. So now today I'll talk much on the schools, where we had the several impacts, and what were. We selected the school because that's the most groups where there are several students of different categories, different age categories, and where we found that they mostly use the in-country grown beans and the maize. So we created a sustainable model in schools, where to date we have 87 schools that have introduced the biofortified food in their meals. Before, they were not using biofortified, they were using normal maize and the normal beans, but due to the project intervention, and now we have 87 schools. And we have successfully linked key value chain actors, the farmers, the processors, the suppliers, the school, and the markets, and accelerated the consumption of biofortified foods in schools, whereby now, from the survey we did in December 2022, we found that we have a total of 568 metric tons of provitamin A maize products. That means it can be the flour or it can be the broken maize. But also we got 836 metric tons of iron beans that has been consumed to those schools. So you can see that is the great impact that the project has made. But also we trained key value chain actors in biofortification, on biofortification, new product development and the access, and those actors are especially the processors, and again we link them with the banks to ensure they are getting the working capital. To date, we have 86 processors or suppliers that have been trained, and we trained 121 head of schools, and we link them with the 90 banks from the regions. So you can see now we have different products in the market. We have the flour, we have the blended flour of iron beans, and iron beans and the provitamin A maize. So different products are in the market, and there are different cookies that are the results of our interventions. But again, we conducted the market activation. This targeted the schools, targeted the normal markets, and where we included the communities, processors, suppliers of provitamin A maize and the PVA, and through this we increased and captured a lot of markets, and the demand was there. And due to this demand, we capacitated the 2 women owned companies with a grant to purchase the machine and to do the marketing, to ensure they are pushing and they're increasing their visibility in the market with their product. So to date, those are the key program impacts that we have achieved under the biofortification project in Tanzania. Thank you.
Wow, that's impressive. Even cookies, that's impressive. They're doing a good job on the projects in Tanzania.
Thank you very much.
Back to you, Halima. What were some of the lessons learned during the Better campaign?
All right, thank you very much, Evan. So as I said earlier, for the campaign, we went into different markets and selected states to sensitize people both in and around the market about these nutrient-dense crops and about biofortification. So what we did was, after attracting the attention of the people in the market, when they came to us, they asked questions, we distributed flyers. We had also branded the vendors and the processors with visually appealing aprons. We had parasols, caps, and storage buckets, so people from all over could easily see them. And the vendors reported that their sales shot upwards after that. So we also conducted food tasting exercises where we randomly selected consumers and asked them to try meals made out of the vitamin A crops that we had sourced from vendors and processors in the market, thereby empowering them, and also making these consumers to know that there's nothing to fear about these foods. We ease their tensions a bit, and many of them who tasted the foods reported that it tasted just like what they were used to. So they'll have no problem switching to vitamin A foods moving forward. So some of the exact lessons that we learned from this project is, I think the major one is that people do want to be healthy. They want to eat healthy foods, and they want to help others to be healthy. So once they are properly aware that eating these crops would provide nutritional value to them or their customers, as the case may be, then they are very willing to choose them. Another thing is the vendors, the processors, and the farmers, they are very willing to produce this food and sell this food once they are sure that people want to buy it. So it still comes down to, we need to create demand from the consumers. Once there's demand, supply has no problem producing it. Then a third thing we learned is that people are very attached to the taste of their familiar foods. They don't want something that is too different, that is too out of what they're used to. We learned this in particular during our food tasting exercises. So the consumers only seemed to get comfortable eating these foods once they had tried it a bit and they're like, okay, this is not so different. Okay, maybe the maize is orange and the cassava is yellow, but beyond that, it is still what I'm used to. So practical demonstrations are key. They need practical demonstrations. And then a bit more technically, we learned that every part of the demand creation campaign must be specifically tailored to that audience in that area. So starting from picking a name and a tagline that would resonate with your target audience. So for our campaign, we chose the name Better, which means better in Nigerian pidgin, that is spoken widely in all of the areas of this project, but it also refers to the beta-carotene content that is present in the provitamin A crops. So the tagline that we chose as well was Ideki Body Campaign, which is in the same Nigerian pidgin and immediately passes a message to the consumers that are reading it or seeing it of health and vitality. So the consumers need to know that this project is for them. They need to immediately understand what message you're trying to pass, otherwise it doesn't work. Then lastly, we also learned the importance of having all the actors in the supply chain involved. So it must start from the farmers, the processors, the wholesale vendors, the retail vendors, and the consumers. Everybody needs to be involved. You cannot try to create awareness or demand in only one group. Everybody must know about it. Everybody must be willing to take it up. So another lesson is that people would learn from their fellow people. So let's assume that one person was present at the market when we did these activations. If they go home and tell someone else about it, the message continues to spread. And people like, okay, I was there, I tasted the food and it was nice. That first-hand account would also inspire somebody else to be willing to try this nutrient-dense crop. So as we are creating awareness, we should encourage the people to step down this awareness that we are creating. Thank you.
Thanks, Halima. So will you say there's need for demand creation activities to be scaled up to actually improve the campaign, the impacts of the campaign to the wider audience?
Oh yes, yes, the demand creation programs need to be scaled up, because from this one program that we did, out of these 36 states in Nigeria, we only visited 8 states, and we still had a reach of over 10 million people. So imagine what it would be like if we could scale it up to the whole of Nigeria and then to the whole of Africa. Yes, demand projects need to be scaled up.
And how was the campaign received?
Oh, very, very well. First of all, the market, we had reports from the people in the markets we visited. From the vendor side, they have reported higher sales because now consumers know about this product, so they are going to them, they want to buy it. The farmers too have noted that there's increased demand for the crops from the processors and the vendors. They keep going to them, when are you going to harvest more, when are you going to harvest more? Because people want to buy it. Now that they know the usefulness of it, people want to buy it. So the farmers are producing more, the vendors are manufacturing more. I don't know how many of us here were present at the Instagram live interview we had last week, I think, with the founder of Cattle Foods, who is also a processor involved in this campaign. She noted that right now, she has more demand than she can fill from all over Africa and even some outside the continent. People have heard of the usefulness of the nutrient-dense crop, so they want it. She's making products to give out as souvenirs in weddings, different things. So people really want to do it. So the consumers have increased demand. Like, yes, while we're at the markets, they talk to us, they ask questions, they want to know. The farmers have noticed that more people want to buy, the vendors have noticed that their sales have gone up. So all round, from all aspects of the supply chain, the campaign has been received very well.
I see. Yeah, that's very good insight, Halima. Please remember to drop in your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll attend to them shortly. Thanks, Halima. Going back to Edwin, how important is biofortification in terms of reducing prevalence of micronutrient deficiencies in Africa?
Thank you, Evans. As you heard from our discussion, that biofortification is done on a farm. So it is produced by the normal farmers, normal peasants at any level of scale. So it has several important. One of the important is that it penetrates where the industrial fortification products cannot penetrate. For example, for the farmers that got no access, or they have no ability, they have no money to purchase the industrial fortified products or supplements, they will go to biofortification. So it penetrates where the industrial fortification cannot go to the community. It goes to the lower community, and that means once you create the access of the seed availability into that community, they will grow and consume, and reduce the level of micronutrient deficiency in that particular in that area. So that is one of the important part of the biofortification. So once the community consumes the biofortified products, they are available. They grow maize, they grow the provitamin A and they consume. They grow the iron beans and they consume. They grow the cassava and they consume. So there will be the reduction of mortality and immobility due to the issue of micronutrient deficiency in that community. But again, another point is on the cost effectiveness. You need it to grow. You need to access the seed, grow and consume. You don't need to go and buy. So it is easier to get a seed. And for example, when you get like the beans seed, that is an OPV. It can be propagated like 3 times. So you see, there is no cost apart from having a proper preservation of your coming season seed to produce and consume. So it is the biofortification is cost effectiveness, especially to the lower earners communities. Another point is on the sustainability. Once you create the seed pipeline and the knowledge on the biofortification to the community, it brings in the sustainability. That means there's no much dependability on the fortification. Like the industrial fortification goes on to acquiring the premix from outside, but with the biofortification, it is done within the community. It is done within the country. The breeding is done within the country from the agricultural research institute. Then they get the early generation seed and go to certified seed, and from certified seed they produce the where possible the QDS, and then now the farmers will access the seed to produce their product. So that once that pipeline is stable, so it is easier to be sustainable within the community. So those are the key importances and the of biofortification in the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Edwin. Thanks, Edwin. Please remember to put your questions in the Q&A box. We'll attend to them shortly. Going back to Halima. Halima, from experience, do you have any concerns about the future of the fortified food, and how will the impact of malnutrition deficiency in Africa, and how will it impact the micronutrient deficiency in Africa? Sorry.
Okay, so I don't have concerns about these crops. I have high hopes, because from the work that bodies like Harvest Plus is doing to promote biofortification, and organizations that we've seen the African Union strongly advocate biofortification in different countries. So it is being taken up quite rapidly. Countries like Uganda have even added it into their national policies. So now all we need to focus on is the last mile, getting the consumers to actually eat these foods. And then I believe that it is a step towards reducing malnutrition on the whole continent. Thank
you. Speaking on the last mile, what do you think are some of the strategies that could be implemented to get to the consumer on the last mile?
Okay, so as I've said earlier, more demand creation campaigns, scaling up existing demand creation campaigns, and getting people involved. It should not be the role of just the government or big NGOs. Everyone who knows about it should tell somebody else about it. So it's as simple as those of us right here on the webinar. Like when we are done, we take up these discussions both in person and on social media. Buy biofortified nutrient-dense crops in your homes. Let your family members know about it. It's as simple as that. Word of mouth, in addition to the more structured demand campaign, would spread the message of biofortification and nutrient-dense crops.
Thanks, Halima. Thanks, Halima. I'm going back to, please remember to put your questions in the Q&A. We'll just get to them shortly. Thank you, Halima. Going back to Edwin, you mentioned about the school feeding program that was initiated in 2022. What will you say were the key lessons were learned from the course of that project?
Okay, thank you, Evans. And and the team. Of course, through the project, we got there several lessons learned. One of the lessons is that when you consider the product by itself and you introduce it to the farmers like a nutritious food, so they take it as having an added advantage. The nutrition is an added advantage that increases the price. So to ensure we don't change, we don't make the biofortified products as a superior product compared to the other products, and to increase the consumption, because once there is a substitute product, people will run into other type of maize or the other types of beans, and more especially to the school suppliers. Those suppliers, those businesses that are supplying to schools, they go for the cheaper price commodities. So once the product in the market, once the biofortified product in the market, the extra cost, so the suppliers might run away from it. So what we did was to do the linkage between the school suppliers and the farmers, so that now we reduce the chain by some intermediaries being removed in that chain. So once so the school suppliers were linked directly in contractual arrangements with the farmers, so they got the product at a good price and managed to supply to schools. That is one. Number two, another lesson learned is on the government engagement. Most of the projects that we are intervening in our country is not the company's projects. We are intervening on the government's policies or government agenda or government's plan. So you need to engage the government, key government institutions, for smooth takeoff of the project. For example, we have the Minister of Education. When you talk about schools, you talk about the Minister of Education. You talk about the Minister of Health, where you talk about the nutrition people being involved. And this one, once the government is involved, it becomes very easy. We have seen easy penetration, easy success because of the government being in front, because we are pushing the government's agenda, not the gains agenda. Another issue was on the government support, strategically positioning by supporting the government. For example, during the launch of the school feeding guidelines, but again, we have been in several school feeding technical working groups, and also we have supported the dissemination and the push of the materials. So that one brought a lot of trust and confidence to the project, and where the government picked it and started moving it. And we see these ones as the sustainable measure that will lead it into the continuity of the project. Another issue, as Halima said, the demonstrations. We did cooking demonstrations and testing of fortified foods at school. And this one has created also demands to school, where they like the beans, they like the cooked ugali, the cooked ugali, and now they started demanding it at school and at home. But again, including that demanding the awareness creation done at schools and the market, it created a lot of pull, a lot of demand, and that requires now the push from the production and the processing to be much confident on and to have the available raw materials. So those are the key lessons learned that we needed to stick onto, and that we needed to keep working on to ensure we are strengthening them for the sustainability of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin, and thank you, Halima, again for the very insightful conversation. Now we'll move forward to the Q&A question. Miss Grace will take us through the Q&A questions. Please.
Thank you so much, Evans, Edwin, and Halima as well for your participation in this panel. Unfortunately, we're not able to get Ms. Akila with us today. We hope we'll be able to do that for a future session. And I mean, a lot of learning has come out from this discussion today. I was just writing notes, right from the part of, the importance of biofortification in terms of it penetrating where industrial fortification can't get access to, and the importance of there being familiarity to the foods, especially when you're talking about demand creation strategies and tailor making those depending on exactly where it is in the context of the implementation. We've looked at involvement of all actors, right from government, who should be at the forefront. Word of mouth is still king in marketing. That is very interesting to learn as well, because so it doesn't matter what the product is here. And I really liked what you said, Halima, in terms of people want healthy foods and they want others to be healthy. That is critical, and I feel it's such a big and important aspect of what it is we're discussing here and what it is we're working towards in our space in terms of healthier diets and addressing malnutrition. So moving to the Q&A box, I have a couple of questions, and I will begin with one which has been raised by Sowemimo, and I believe we have in fact addressed most of it in terms of the question is, what is the plan for educating the masses and not just farmers in this process? This is because if you don't educate the public about its benefits, therefore then you will not have farmers who are really interested in growing using this process. So I will bring that to you, Halima, just to be having a think about that. How do we educate the masses, and how do we make this information about biofortification reach to wider audiences and people are receptive towards it? While you are considering that answer, for you, Edwin, I think we started on an assumption in terms of, everybody, we understand what we are all talking about in terms of biofortification, but someone has raised, it's a critical question. What is the technological process of adding nutrients to the foods? And this also ties in with another comment of somebody who has raised the issue that we are speaking about foods that are nutrient enriched rather than nutrient dense, and that is a good separation to make for us as well, even in our future platforms and future engagements as we are raising awareness about these different topical issues. So I will come back to you for that response, Josiah. What is the technological process of adding these nutrients to foods? So let's begin with you, Halima.
All right, thank you. So if I'm correct, the question was, what is the plan for educating the masses, right? Okay, so it's, as I've said, we need more demand creation programs. We need scaled up demand creation programs for the ones that are already existing, we need word of mouth. So I would say that apart from physically going to areas to sensitize them about biofortification and the benefits of these nutrient-enriched crops, we also need a virtual and media presence. So TV shows, radio jingles, commercials being aired on biofortification, as well as social media discussions and platforms like this. And this is exactly why NCAfrica exists, to create awareness on these issues. So we can have them discussed on platforms like this. We can have other social media discussions, and then little by little, we're letting everyone know what it is, and then everyone that's present here can go home and tell somebody. They can start up their own social media discussion about it. In your little pods, you can spread the message, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Halima. And it is interesting, you say that everybody can come in and do their little bit, which is important. It's about passing forward that information, passing forward that knowledge, so that then we are also adding to that conversation in terms of the different aspects of not just biofortification, but healthier diets and addressing malnutrition. And over to you, Edwin, just to clarify the technological process of adding nutrients to foods. And I'd actually like to combine this with a question that has been asked in terms of how many years does it take to get a fortified seed? So perhaps combine those two responses as you address them. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Grace. Well, it's a good question when you talk about biofortification, and that is on the technology of adding those micronutrients into those specific type of food. When you talk about biofortification, the technologies under biofortification, they are mainly three. Mm-hmm. One is we can go through the agronomic practices, where you enrich the soil with macro and micronutrients, and the plant extracts more those nutrients, and you get the crop with the desired high level of that micronutrient. So that is agronomic practice, where the good agricultural practice is used. The number two is on the conventional plant breeding. The conventional plant breeding is done the interspecies breeding process, where crosses are made naturally through pollination. So here the point to make is about the crosses is made naturally. So once there's a natural pollination, so there's a transfer from one plant to another without an interspecies crossing barrier. Those plants without interspecies crossing barrier. So that is the second technology. And what I can say is most of the biofortification, most of the crops that we are using are through conventional plant breeding. That it is through the crossbreeding. The two plants you crossbreed and come up with the crop of having high level of that required micronutrient. The third one is the GMO, the genetic modification technology. Now the difference between the two of conventional and the GMO is the transfer of DNA between non-compatible species. You can see these species are non-compatible with the cross barriers. They have cross barriers, and the process is done under the laboratory conditions using a vital technology without the natural systems of pollination. So those are the three technologies, but what we are adopting and what we are using currently in the country is the conventional plant breeding. So the HIB we have high iron beans, the provitamin A maize we have, the seed are crossbred, then later coming up with the seed going into the grain. Now, responding to the number of years, I cannot tell specifically unless we have an agronomist in this panel. But what I know, you need to have the early generation seed come to the area, to the basic, go to certified, go to QDS if possible, and go to the grain. Those are the stages of making the seed, and of course the early generation seed, they are done under the research institute. And currently in the country, the private sectors are allowed to produce certified seed. So we pick from certified seed, then going to QDS that are produced can be produced within the community, then they produce the grain. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you. And I mean, if there is indeed an agronomist, even in the attendees, do help us with that particular part of the length of time. But I think Josiah has done a really good time in terms of just giving at least a process for the whole, I mean, of giving us an overview of the entire process. And still tied to that, Josiah, someone else raises a question: what is the major difference between nutrient-dense foods and nutrient-rich foods? If you are able to respond to that.
Sorry, Grace. Somebody can come in on you. I'm trying to look and to thinking about it. The difference between the two. Yes, please.
No worries at all. As you were thinking about that, we can come back to you, Halima. There is a question about biofortification information. While you were doing the Better campaign, for example, did you have that information included in the packaging? Is it part and parcel of the way these products are presented to consumers? What has been your experience with that?
Okay, yeah, so I believe that most manufacturers who process these biofortified or nutrient-enriched crops have a written on labels that this has been increasing the level of vitamin A. They might, or whatever nutrients has been added. They might not specifically mention that it was enriched through biofortification, but they always note the level of the nutrients that is added to it.
Okay. We do have an additional question still, and I think this is why biofortification is one of those and fortification quite misunderstood by the wider public. A lot of myths, and recently there was a report that stated, for example, Kenya has got the largest percentage of misinformation with regards to genetically modified foods, for example. So GMO is a big discussion as it is right now. And that just came to mind because, for example, so Emimo raises the issues about, what are the disadvantages of biofortification? Can you have too much nutrients in a food? Is it something like too much of something? Can the pesticides being used for the plants, can they affect this process? So I don't know what your thoughts are about that, Halima, as well as Josiah as well. So, yeah.
Okay, so on the disadvantages, I wouldn't say that there are any true disadvantages. The nutrients cannot be too much because, first of all, the levels of being bred into this crop are kind of controlled, and then your body still chooses the amount to absorb from the food. Your body still controls the absorption process. So although, yes, the nutrients are available to be absorbed, your body still controls how much of it is absorbed. There is very little, according to the African Union, there's very little chance, like slim to none, of overdose or toxicity of these nutrients from biofortified foods.
Okay, I think that's quite encouraging to hear when we are doing, these different activities, and some of these questions that do come our way for sure. And Josiah, perhaps would you want to respond to that particular question, or the early one about nutrient dense or nutrient rich foods?
Maybe adding on to Alima's response.
Yes, go ahead. We cannot hear you if you're speaking, Josiah. Hello? All right, sorry, I think we seem to have lost you, Josiah. While
okay,
he...
So sorry, while we wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
So while we wait for him, I'll just add that on the question about labeling, it is an area that needs policy development to really focus on. In Nigeria, we're still trying to work on getting labels on packaging of biofortified or nutrient-enriched foods. Here, because I see on the list of participants, we have Ms. Atinuke, who is the founder of Cattle Foods. They are a major processor and manufacturer of what's it called, biofortified or nutrient-enriched foods. So, Ms. Atinuke, since you're here, would you like to please speak on the labeling aspect? If you're speaking, please, you're muted.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And thank you, Halima, for this opportunity. So for the labeling, I think one of the things that is actually very important here is, yes, a lot of people want to see and want to know that their food are natural, which is one of the things that biofortified food is offered to consumers because it is natural, right? So in terms of labeling, one of the things that we've been able to do in cattle food is to put on our label that these crops are biofortified crops. And we try to find a way of explaining a little about it so that the label will not be too cumbersome and all that. So in terms of labeling, I think one of the things that we can also put more effort on is to see how we can have a logo, just like the way you have SON logo, MD, all those logos, halal logos, and on food, and work around it and see how those logos can be on food products, yes, so that when people see this logo, people will be able to say that, oh, this are biofortified foods, right? And I think that is better. But for horse and cattle food, one of the things we've been able to do is to put it boldly on the products that these are made from biofortified crops. And we try to explain a little on our labeling. So I think that's one of the major things I've been able to do and be able to communicate that to our consumers. And please, if I might just shift in a little on the question around the nutrient-dense and nutrient-enriched food. For me, I think nutrient-dense food are food that contain naturally higher level of the vitamins, the minerals, and everything that is being needed naturally. And the enriched ones are ones that in the process of production, right, complementary nutrients are added to them just to complement those ones that are lost during production. So yeah, so those are my little contributions, and I hope it helps. Thank you.
It does. Thank you very much. And if you don't mind us asking, what products do you have, or what food products do you sell?
Okay, so we work majorly with all the pro-vitamin cassava. We work with the vitamin A maize and work with the orange flesh sweet potato. So from the cassava, we have we are the Pauna, the major company that has been able to make custard, like a porridge from cassava using the pro-vitamin cassava. And we have the gari that people eat here in Nigeria or maybe some other part of Africa countries. We have fufu, which is also one of the stable food here in Nigeria. We have high quality cassava flour that can be used for confectionery industries and all that. Then for the maize, so we do the maize in the powdered form for B2B, for people that want to use it for other products and for some other baby companies. Then for the orange flesh sweet potato, we also do that in the form of a meal that you can make as a swallow to eat with soups. And we also have the one that can be used for baby food companies that they can use in their production of products. So this also can also be used in the complementary, in the confectioneries industry. So those are some of the products that we have in bio that are biofortified. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And sorry, just allow me to ask the last question, because it's always good to have that firsthand kind of feedback as you have been rolling out the products. And how have you seen the uptake from consumers and even the farmers you work with, but especially from the consumer side? How have you seen that?
Okay, so for the consumer side, well, it's been encouraging though, but initially we had to do a lot of, just like the question you were asking around of consumer awareness and all that. So, but we had to do a lot of awareness. We had to do a lot of sensitization, just for this consumer to be aware that you are getting nutritious food. It's just like your normal food, but this one is more nutrient dense with nutrients that can help you with it. So we had to do a lot of awareness and sensitizations. But really, the acceptance has really been good to the extent that we don't even have enough to give out to sell out, because we have a lot of other spider to some of biofortified products that we sell. And in the farmers angle too, so what we've been able to do farmers also to do sensitization. So it's got an extent where we had to go buy a old truck of cassava and cassava stems and some of maize seed to give to some of these farmers free of charge, just for them to cultivate, for them to see. And when they see this, all they're concerned about, okay, is that once we cultivate this, will there be market access for us to market access for these crops? And we told them, don't worry, cultivate and we will buy from you. So from that, we're able to create like an outgrow farmer scheme for those farmers, where we have farmers on us. Presently, we have up to directly, we have up to like 2,000 farmers, and indirectly more than 5,000 farmers right now that cultivate this for us. So we give them the planting materials, we empower them some planting materials for them to cultivate, and they sell back to us, because we make sure that they have market access. And that's one of the things that encourages them. And also, we also have to do sensitization for them that you have to feed your family this thing that you are cultivating, because that is where nutrition starts from. It starts from the farm and starts from the farmers. So those are the things we've been able to do. And we also have extension agents that also work with these farmers so that they can cultivate to standard and for climate change, so that they can meet all the climate change criteria and all that. So those are things we've been able to do around the consumer and the farmers angle. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really impressive. And even the number of farmers that you're working with, I feel like we need to do a follow-up webinar in terms of just demand creation strategies around biofortified food, and how those can be scaled up, what is working, what is not, what can be tweaked, and that kind of thing. So thank you so much for that, and for sharing your thoughts. Tolu Lope, this webinar will be made, we can make it available to attendees. We also usually have it shared on our social media platforms, and have it because it's also live streamed on our YouTube channel as well. We also about fortification, and not just about fortification, some of the content that we deliver as Nutrition Conversations Africa has a niche, it has its niche audience. And so you will find that though the participants usually are not as many as other, for example, you talk about SMEs, but the content is rich and it's diverse, and it's a learning opportunity. And I hope that you all feel the same way. And so we will definitely be sharing these videos to be able to have you even use them and forward that on. So I hope that this, we've come to the end. We have about 4 more minutes that, we use that to wrap up. And I hope that this has been a really useful use of your time, that you've come out of here feeling, more informed, or more raising awareness, or even just opened opportunities for you to have, even with others who are in as the attendees or the panelists, to have a chat with them moving forward. And as we have been reminded, it's the little things that we do on our part, each one of us, what can we do to move this message forward about biofortification and how that can improve our diets as Africans. And I believe that I would like to say for the final word, even as we wrap up, just opening a parenthesis, we shall soon be launching a student learning series. We get a lot of requests in terms of, how can students plug in food systems, in nutrition, in food, and that kind of space without necessarily following the channels of studying as a nutritionist, a dietitian, and that kind of thing. So I want to open up to them opportunities and awareness about how the different career choices that they can come in on board and be able to utilize that in their spaces of influence. And so we may be reaching out to some of you, but we also invite you to join us for these future conversations. It's important to address the different thoughts and the different ideas, even right at the onset, getting that particular audience at that age and very interested. And we'll be partnering as well with some universities. It's an exciting opportunity for us to continue to evangelize, if you may, about malnutrition and food issues within the continent. So once again, thank you so much. And we will, and we will be having that particular webinar on March 24th. But for this one, we thank you, and we appreciate your input, and we look forward to engaging with each one of you at a different session. So I will now wind up and wish you all a fantastic rest of day, morning, evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much.